Greetings, traveler. I am Sonox, the teller of tales. Would you like to hear one? Before we get started, perhaps subscribe to the channel as it helps a lot and we're still growing. If you like the video, that helps immensely, and leaving a comment helps with engagement as well. Sorry to have to do this for you, but the YouTube algorithm is relentless. This tale is called Really Cool Homebrew Campaign and System is Almost Ruined by a Racist Misogynist. Prologue. Not necessary for the story, but I shall tell you anyways. Okay, so a bit of background. I love D&D, but don't really play on the regular, mostly because of my bad luck with dice rolls. I know that luck doesn't pick sides, but when you spend a week on a character that you're super invested in, only to miss an attack roll, a dex check, and a death save in a row, and be turned into chunky salsa just 2 hours into a 4-hour session, it's incredibly demoralizing. And this happens to me all the time. My friend at the time, who's more like a brother to me now, really wanted me to join his table game. I told him how I just didn't feel like putting so much effort into something that really upsets me, even if the table, group, and RP were really good. So he told me that he was building a new homebrew campaign and a custom system specifically for people like me. Basically, it works like this. All characters have the same basic stats: strength, speed, dexterity, wisdom, charisma, etc. The maximum for all these stats is 3, representing low, normal, and high. Dice were scaled back to D10s. You get a +1 modifier only if your character is adept in said action or skill, or if your RP was amazing at describing said action. So the max you could get at anything was +2. So all actions are your base stat plus D minus 10 plus 1 or +2 modifier for adeptness and RP. Falling in line with this new system that was more action and roleplay focused rather than class or statistics focused, he said the campaign was a multiversal event where our characters were summoned by some random omnipotent being, Rob, and had to fight the champions of evil, all of which were DM NPCs, to preserve the peace of reality. And as a result, we could RP whatever we wanted, any kind of character or class from any piece of fiction, or even make up your own. Enemies would also be picked by DM across various media and given whatever stats seemed fair and necessary. Again, this system was primarily built for fun, not for the challenge. Now, I wanted to be a Jedi, but was nervous because if you read Star Wars novels, Jedi can get ridiculously overpowered. He told me it was fine, and that if I wanted, I could just restrict my powers to whatever Force abilities are shown in the films. This way, if someone complains or is curious about it, we could just show them, since the films are the most accessible form of media for Star Wars. The system was not only tailored for RP-heavy people who struggled with the complexity of D&D rules or with terrible dice rolls like yours truly, but also to introduce friends to new fiction that they wouldn't otherwise have known about. Now, with all that said, the window for failure was so low and the campaign was so unconventional that I debated whether or not it even counted as D&D, but it was too awesome to pass up. To preserve fairness and avoid ridiculous power imbalance even further, he said that on your character sheet you must list every ability or power your character has access to, maximum 10, and also introduce the stat equalization rule. So if you wanted to be a space marine from 40k, you can. Your bolter just won't move at hypersonic speeds, and you don't have nanosecond reaction times. If you wanted to be a Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z, you can. You'll just be destroying giant boulders with your energy attacks rather than planets. Story begins session 0. This story took place about 3 years ago when we're all early to mid-20s. I went to Jay's house and there were 6 of us in total. Names have been changed, blah blah blah. Myself, 20s, a Jedi Knight that was traveling the galaxy, named Zon Tythos. My friend, Jay, the DM, Millie, a girl who went to our college, played a homebrew orc girl from a Wakanda-esque planet where orcs are the dominant species. Dope, Magitech and all, named Kali. Tyler, a fit guy that my buddy knew from work, playing a Jonin ninja from a Naruto's village hidden in the clouds, specializing in lightning and genjutsu, named Koga. Allison, Tyler's friend, playing a succubi character in the vein of a Morrigan from Darkstalkers, who allowed herself to be summoned because her homeworld was too boring, named simply Love. And Max, oh goodness Max, a homebrew technopath who calls himself a no-sapien from a post-apocalyptic world where humans must purify themselves in order to survive under the planet's harsh conditions, named Tyrell. He went into exuberant detail on his character's backstory, the mechanics of his powers, and how he has a bigger role in all this than the rest of us. It didn't quite feel like main character syndrome, but it felt condescending nonetheless. He was the only real homebrew since Kali was, at her core, a run-of-the-mill orc who had vibranium weapons essentially. So we begin by introducing ourselves and our characters, backstory, etc. Max almost immediately seemed dismissive and not at all interested in what the others were saying. He openly called Tyler's character Koga the weeb one, and Allison's character Love delicious. Like, dude, talk about lacking self-awareness. Also, we're playing D&D! You're not standing on much of a high ground over weebs, man. When it was Max's turn, he took a solid 30 minutes. We were all listening politely, but had to occasionally nudge him to speed up. He would simply grimace and say, "I'm almost done." Takes 10 minutes more. I went last, but as soon as I said I was a Jedi, I got the resounding, "Wow, cool, man," in dead monotone from Max. Like, am I crazy, or was he sabotaging himself on purpose? Did he have a vendetta against Star Wars? I thought nothing of it and we moved along. Session 1. When we finally start, we are told by Rob that we have to split up into 2 teams. One team of 2 to go find a talisman on another planet, and the other team of 3 to go battle the first champion of evil. Zahn opted to go with Kali to a rural jungle planet. All goes well, and we have interesting banter along the way. Now, I knew Millie beforehand, and she's a nice person, so our characters' chemistry just clicked. Eventually, we have our first fight with a blitz demon from Devil May Cry, and because Jedi aren't too physically imposing, at least in the films, I thought it'd be fair to give Zahn a 1 in all physical stats, but could amp with the Force to make it a 2. This would count as my adaptness modifier. I was thrown down and Kali smashed said monster aside thanks to her natural 3 in strength. My character was grateful, but Max, of course, had to say, "Come on, man! You need to be saving her butt!" I was sitting next to him at the table, so only I heard it, but I was still boggled by the seemingly blatant sexism. And the fight progressed. The Blitz shot a bolt of lightning, which Jean caught with his palm, and redirected it back, causing the monster to explode. "What? A Jedi can't do that!" We were kind of taken aback for a moment when Tyler spoke up before I did. Yes, they can. I wasn't sure if I was more surprised by Tyler leaping to my defense and with evidence, or Max's brazen, confident ignorance. Either way, Max just sort of slumped into his chair with a huff. Okay then, Zahn and Kali find the talisman and gain a little more respect for each other after the battle. I could see that my buddy DM was setting up a romance between them and Millie, and I dug it, so it was cool. We swap over to the other party afterward, and they battle a character named August from Asura's Wrath. I didn't play the game, but oh boy, am I thankful for that stat equalization rule. During the fight, Tyler and Allison do awesome combo attacks like using Koga's lightning to amplify Love's magic missiles. It was cool to see the character act in sync with one another. Meanwhile, Max's character, Terrell, just went the hit the thing till it dies route. I couldn't help but feel ticked off. This whole system is specifically built so you can let your imagination run wild with little concern for things like permadeath. So why are you wasting it on bland approach to combat? And he was a technopath. Use technopathy. Nope, just super strength, punches, and kicks. The battle was won, and we called it a session. After that, I talked to my buddy and asked if Max was always this abrasive. He told me that Max actually rarely plays, and he never said why. Regardless, I didn't like his attitude, and it made the other players uncomfortable as well. Session 2. So before we picked up from our last session, I had exchanged texts with Millie, telling me that she was sorry if Max was giving me a hard time. He's not normally like that, and he might just be going through something. I didn't like his behavior, but I understood. I'd been there before. So let bygones be bygones and looked forward to the next session. In all honesty, Max wasn't the stereotypical that guy. He was actually well-groomed, clean, and even if I did complain about his character's overly long story, the story he gave was still quite interesting. It's just the small things that were getting to me. As we start session 2, Kali and Zahn are the ones who have to fight the next evil champion. We traveled to a junk waste planet and engaged with a polymorph that I don't think was from any series in particular. What was cool was what it did. DM. Koga, Love, Turl, hand me your sheets. Tyler. Oh, it's on now. Allie. Oh, so this is the PvP. Max. Why? Facepalm. Me. It's a polymorph. It's gonna copy your characters and make us fight them. Max responds, well, that's kinda dumb. Why couldn't it have been something more interesting? I could tell my friend Jay was somewhat hurt by this. It's a really cool idea to see how our characters' abilities interact on the offensive whilst not forcing actual PvP, and Max is just sitting here belittling the whole thing. Well, I think it's dope, Tyler interjected as the rest of us lauded Jay's idea. Max just sulked. Again, he turned over his sheet to Jay. The fight starts and it's pretty rad. Callie struggles against Love's tendrils only to fold them over and use them to throw the morph into a cliffside. The creature morphs again into Koga and uses shadow clones only for Zan to detect the real one via force sense and skewer the creature with his lightsaber. It screeches before turning into Tyrell and began summoning giant hordes of junk and scrap metal. It began to fold around him into a scrappy 30-foot tall junk mecha. Max says, "It can't do that!" DM, "What?" "I haven't used that ability yet, so there's no way it could copy it," he said with just a ridiculous amount of cockiness, like he was outsmarting the system. DM responds, "Well, it's a magic polymorph, so it can. It's not a big deal." "Whatever you say, boss. I'm just not into when DMs cheat, okay?" The lion, the witch, and the audacity of this little turd. Tyler again comes to the defense. "Dude, that's not cool. We're just having fun. Why are you getting so mad about it?" Max just shrugs, saying something about how he didn't think it was fair. Okay, so at first he thought it was a weak boss. Now he criticizes it for its level of power? Whatever. The fight concludes with Zan being thrown like a baseball by Kali's super strength, slicing the behemoth in two, ending the fight. Kali is worried about Zan, who was injured, and they take shelter in a cove. Once they were there, they converse some more about life, the Force, her orc religion, their overlap, and love. Max was relatively silent this time around checking his phone, laughing occasionally at a gif or something classy. We turn over to the party of 3, and they needed to retrieve another talisman that was in the possession of the next champion, a necromancer in another dimension. On their way, they decide to rest on an asteroid and start to camp, and at some point, Tyrell smacks Love's behind as she's walking away saying, "There's more where that came from, sweetie pie." Now, he's in character here, but that didn't make it any less weird, especially considering that Allie and Tyler were together in real life. Just add to the pile of "just what the crap, Max" moments. They encounter the champion who summons a effing space dragon with the talisman lodged in between his teeth. It was a pretty standard affair, but there were several moments when Love either gets hurt close to Tyrell or lands a hit when we're told by Max that Tyrell would exclaim, "Don't worry, babe, I got this." Or, "I ogled her curvy body, giving me immense motivation." And other things to that effect. Again, classy. Boss is dead, MacGuffin retrieved, session 2 over. We made a separate group chat without Max in it. We had to do something. He wasn't literally destroying all the fun, but anytime he interacted, it was either completely juvenile or just ran contrarian to the campaign or players. It was just annoying. Jay talked to him, and all he got was, "Dude, I'm loving it, so I don't see what your guys' problem is. I thought it was just for fun, right? It's not serious." Like, yeah, it's not serious in a critical way, but it was serious in a role-playing way. Session 5. After a small time skip, where not much happened, MacGuffins, boss battles, and a lot of romance, all of which Max replaces vocal criticism in exchange for silence, with a particular sneer for the romance bits. Today, I would find out why. So the band gets back together and arrives on a utopian planet where the cities are aligned with marble and vibrant gold. At a certain point, we all chose to turn in for the night to rest up for the final battle tomorrow. In the dead of night, Callie comes to Zahn's room to confess her forbidden feelings since it was somewhat against both their cultures to be with someone. For the orc culture, it was customary to wed another orc, and Jedi aren't supposed to marry, period. They have a heart-to-heart and make love. It was tasteful, you know? No exaggerated descriptions of smashing, just the dialogue of two people who love each other. They disrobe, and the scene just fades out. Before anything happened next, Max immediately spat out, "Oh, what the F is this?" We just all looked at him. "What was that?" I asked curiously. "This crap, the whole interspecies thing. You know, dude, I'm out." He gathered his things and left. We were all dumbfounded. What just happened? Now, I never noticed this until just then because it didn't really matter to me, but all of us at the table were white, and Millie's orc was the only non-white character. We ended the session early to gather ourselves after the outburst. It was just so surreal that we didn't know how to react. Sigh. Later, we received a crap ton of text in the group chat saying how we were race traitors and slur lovers. So as it turns out, he didn't have some underlying problem going on to explain why he really played. He just didn't want to play with some of our other friends who were of color. He didn't dislike romance, he hated race mixing. Oh, wow. He was quickly kicked out officially from the game, our friend group, and the like. We would later finish the campaign and it was super fun. I still talk to them and we play regularly on Discord. Tyler and Allie are engaged and Millie is still going to college. So remember kids, don't be racist. Don't be misogynistic, it's bad for your health. Holy moly. It's hard to believe people like that still exist. I don't know how someone can hold such terrible, immoral values and not only implement them in a game, but actually carry them out in real life to be that disgusted by something that is so evil in nature. I think it is a great idea to rid someone like that. If you just get them out of your life altogether. So what you did is great, but unfortunately you had to experience it. Hopefully no one was scarred after that, and you all will recover. But yes, that is very unfortunate and crazy to hear. Like I said, it's very hard to believe that people still think like that and people like that still exist. I don't know how you can play a game like that and be that upset over something, but I guess if you're that much of a piece of crap in person, then it's going to carry over into a game. Well, that concludes our tale for today. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please again consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. If you'd like to hear another tale, come back and I shall tell you one. If you'd like to hear another right now, perhaps watch another video. There's a few off to the side.